And welcome back. My next guest is town attorney and former Clarkstown judge Craig Johns. Welcome, Judge.
Good morning.
So happy to have you. Known you for a long period of time. You were a very distinguished member of the judiciary here in Clarkstown and Rockland County, also a private attorney for very many years. You completed your time as a judge. Fortunately for me, and for the residents of Clarkstown, you didn't want to just retire as a judge. You wanted to continue in public service in some capacity, and now you've taken over as our town attorney. So it's really a privilege and an honor to have you working with us as the town attorney, and I really want to thank you for your many years of service as a judge.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
So before we get to kind of a little bit of your background, so our residents have a better opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. You know, as a judge, you don't have the opportunity to be able to go out and campaign, you know, except when you're running, right? And so people, they may have gotten to know you, but they would get to know you every 4 years. And you serve for a lengthy period of time as a judge. So let's talk just about your background. Where were you born and raised, you know, and then what made you get into the legal profession?
I was born here in Rockland County, 1953. I went through Nanuet schools, Nanuet High School. Went out to University of Connecticut to college, and then New York Law School in Manhattan. And I was employed initially by a New York City litigation firm. That was during and immediately after law school, at which time I became an assistant district attorney here in Rockland County, and I was assigned to the Clarkstown Justice Court. So that was my first contact with the town of Clarkstown, actually. After that, I traveled to Arlington, Virginia, where I was in-house counsel in a major international corporation. And following that, I became a partner in a firm in New York City. And then in 1989, I broke off of the partnership and opened my practice in Nanuet. 4 years later, in 1993, I married Lana Musolino, and I ran for judge and was elected for the first time. I was re-elected 6 more times and served as town justice for 28 years.
Wow.
And I was thinking, well, maybe I'll retire at that point and from public service. And then, like you said, had some conversations with folks and had the shortest retirement in history. And January 3rd started here as town attorney.
But we're delighted to have you. So tell us a little bit, just you know, your perspective. So you're wearing a different hat. You're in the legal profession. You also were a private attorney. You know, as a town justice, you had your own law practice. So you're in your own law practice and represented clients for very, very many years. But now as town attorney, it's a very different experience of being a judge. So tell us just a little bit about what was it like being a judge. You know, where the types of cases that would come before you, and how that's really different from what you're doing now.
This is very different than being a judge, but the office and responsibilities of town attorney are very similar to my corporate experience and my partnership experience in New York as far as practicing law and as far as managing people. As far as being a judge, again, when you are a judge in a town like this, and town of Clarkstown is the 3rd largest town justice court in the state, we still were department heads, the 4 judges, and we still managed anywhere between 9 and 14 people at any given time over there, all of our clerks and staff. So again, it was similar in that way, but the difference is, as a judge, obviously you're making decisions, whereas as a town attorney or a private attorney, you're taking a position and representing your client's best interests. So at this juncture, not only did I retire from being a judge, but I have also closed my private practice, or substantially closed my private practice of 33 years, so I can devote my full attention to representing my new client, which is the town of Clarkstown.
Right, so you're essentially, as a judge, you were working to mete out justice in justice court, and you were working for the people, but in a different capacity. But now you're literally the attorney that is going to represent the town and really manage a very fulsome approach to the law. And we'll get into some of the aspects of what that's like. And before we segue away from your tenure as a judge, though, I'd like to you were involved with drug court and a few other initiatives. Maybe you could briefly just touch on that, because I think it's also germane to your work as town attorney.
I believe it was 1999, a grassroots group from probation and mental health, district attorney's office, public defender's office, they all got together and they interviewed a number of judges, and I was fortunate that they felt that I was the most appropriate judge to institute and initially preside over the Rockland County Drug Court. It was a challenge because the county court initially didn't want to pursue that. So as a town judge, I needed to get the cooperation of all the other town and village courts so that they would refer appropriate cases to the town of Clarkstown. And it was a volunteer position. I didn't get paid anything extra for doing it. It required anywhere from a half a day to 2 days a week working on these cases. And at the time, it was a very new initiative. It took people out of the normal justice court procedure. They waived their rights with the intent of getting into treatment and coming out the other side as a better person, no longer addicted. And it greatly reduced the rate of recidivism for these people, because they were committing crimes anywhere stemming from possession of drugs, use of drugs, petty larcenies, grand larcenies in order to accomplish and continue their drug habits. So it was very rewarding. I did that for about 4 years before it was transferred on, and ultimately it was accepted by the county court, and it's still there today.
Which is great. I mean, you were really a pioneer, so we thank you for that. So we only have a couple of minutes left, but why don't you talk to us a little bit about what it's like to run the town attorney's office? I don't think people realize, I mean, the town gets sued a lot. People slip and fall on different streets. You've got a number of staff that you've got to manage. You've got attorneys, lawsuits that are out there. So you've got to draft local laws. I mean, it's like really running a big active law practice, right?
It's a varied group of law. Initially, when I took the position, I was given the opportunity to hire some deputy attorneys. And rather than hiring one more full-time attorney, which was allocated in the budget, I thought it was more efficient to hire 2 part-time attorneys that specialized in certain areas. I hired Kevin Conway, who has village attorney experience and is very good with all the property issues. And I hired Denise Weiss, who is an experienced contract corporate litigator and also very familiar with town code litigation. So she'll be working a lot with the Justice Court here in Clarkstown. And then I retained the services of Paul Schofield, kept him on staff because he's been with the town of Clarkstown for a long time, and he has a lot of everyday experience here and is very helpful as well. In addition, we retain outside counsel because some of the issues, major issues we deal with here are large lawsuits that are handled by a firm in Westchester that provides us with a lot of in-court litigation experience. And then we have labor issues that come up, grievances, COVID-19.
Right.
And I rely on the efforts of our labor council as far as that's concerned. But I really have hit the ground running. I walked in the door and we had this most recent tragedy up in New City, which I would like to commend the Clarkstown Police for handling the arrests and the criminal aspect of it. But what we've done is we're drafting new legislation to address short-term rentals, and we're prosecuting the homeowner for violating the laws that were in place. the new legislation will make that law even stronger. I've also, like I mentioned, been up to date on all the COVID-19 changes, whether it's mask wearings or what is appropriate for sick time, what's COVID sick time, how long people must be out of work, and then we've been handling a number of grievances, where there may be employee problems. So it's
been across the board, huh?
yeah, and property issues where we're allocating money to certain projects that we're doing, and working with seniors in senior housing.
Right. So this is it's just been great. I mean, and to have somebody such as yourself, with ample, just a wealth of legal experience and your background as a judge and the temperament, really you bring a nice temperament to the office with the folks, that we're working with. So we're basically out of time, but what I'd like to do is just, if folks are interested in learning a little bit more, if they've got legal questions about the town of Clarkstown, how do they get in touch with you?
Oh, they certainly can get in touch with us by calling the town attorney's office. It's
So 639-2060, have them.
correct.
They can
and
call and they can speak to you or an attorney if they've got questions about any other particular
I
issue.
am always available to speak to members of the public, and in the event that they don't get through initially, I'll certainly return the call.
Okay. So, Judge, I want to thank you for your long-term service to the town, and more importantly, your continuing service now as our town attorney in my next term, and really look forward to continuing excellence and great things to come from you.
Thank you very much. I'm enjoying it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.